Okay.
Hi out there, I'm Jonathan Bengal here, Naked Tax Talk Raw here on YouTube. This is a recording, it's not a live show today. I do apologize because I'm not normally stripped down to my skivvies, but I digress. I've always asked this question, Jonathan, why do you have to always show up naked on your show? Well, I'm not today, but normally we define that as the ability to show our courage and to be vulnerable. So today I'm having this amazing meeting with Lauren. She's joining me here in Zoom, and she's asked me a very important question about her taxes. And for you guys out there too, in your taxes, in terms of how we go about mitigating it. And I thought to myself, what a perfect opportunity this little episode could be. And Lauren, you've agreed to just be a spontaneous guest on my show. Lauren, so can you just rephrase what was your question again? And then I'm going to answer your question again for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the background is that my husband and I are both W-2 earners, and quite a bit of our income comes in the form of things like bonuses and equity grants that are taxed at a high rate. And we had just recently invested in a rental property to hopefully offset some of that tax burden. So, our goal is to try to keep some more of that money in our pocket go forward.
Awesome, great, thank you. So I'm going to share some secrets with you in terms of um, I'm going to share some secrets with you in terms of how we go about that. So I said earlier too, before we started recording the show, and I had said to you, I've got some answers for you, but it's going to sting just a little bit. And what I said to you
Mhm.
was, as long as we're W-2 earners, it's very difficult to offset our taxes. So we're familiar with common ones like contributing to traditional IRAs, Roths, but that doesn't really benefit you today, it benefits you tomorrow. We have
Mhm.
employee benefit programs, right, that we can contribute to. We get a little bit of, help there. But in terms of like saving, like I was saying, tens and hundreds of $1,000s in taxes, it's actually very difficult to do as a W-2 earner. And you started to take the steps that allows you to take advantage of tax law, right? In terms of those
Mhm.
deductions. So what you did is you took a residence and you converted it into a rental property, which is fantastic,
Right.
right? So now we're going to take in rental income as it comes in, and then you're going to be allowed to deduct all of the expenses related to this rental property. So in my
Mhm.
book, I wrote a book last year in 2020 called The ABCs of Deductions, an Entrepreneur's Guide to Tax Write-Offs. It's a number one best-selling book out there. It's in paperback and also an ebook edition. And essentially what I say is that in order for you to deduct an expense or deduction, it has to be
Mhm.
ordinary and it has to be necessary in order to produce a profit. And
Got
that's
it.
kind of ironic because we say, well, we want to save money in taxes. So we think we'll go and deduct and thereby reduce my income. But remember, the reason why you went and converted your personal residence into a rental and moved out subsequently, right? The
Mhm.
main purpose you did that was to make a profit. The main reason
Right.
why I went into business was to make a profit. And this is exactly what Uncle Sam says. If you're going to go into business, you're going into business to make money. So if we go into business or into property ownership with the mindset of, I want to create a loss, we could almost argue and say it's an abusive tax shelter, and we want to avoid that,
Mhm.
right? So we got to
Correct.
take the right steps to make sure it's right and legal. So one of my um, letters in my book is called D for Depreciation. And
Mhm.
I basically talk about depreciation being this fluff expense that it's not really an expense that's created. Like you don't go spend the money to create it. It's
Right.
given to you, right? Because of the use of the property. And typically what happens is the depreciation is what's going to create essentially a larger deduction for you, which sometimes creates your profits and turns it into a loss.
Mhm.
But here's what we have to be careful of because you're not a real estate professional by
Mhm.
license. All right. Now, there's some loopholes here that we will get into maybe later on, but there's some loopholes here. But for right now, on the surface, you're just a regular Joe Schmo investor that just did
Correct.
normal things, right? So, Uncle Sam's going to say to you, we're going to be able to take the losses that are generated. Depreciation is going to play a big part of that. And so rental
Mhm.
properties are depreciated over 27 and a half years. So you can take
Mhm.
the purchase price minus the land value because land is non-depreciable. So
Okay.
you have to extract the land portion out of it. And now you're looking at the structure. Now,
Right.
without strategic planning, you would just take the whole lump sum and depreciate it over the standard time, 27 and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you could do is you can go out there and get something called a cost segregation analysis that
Okay.
basically are specialists that come in and they go, the electricity is this price, the walls are this price, the flooring is this price. So what they do is they itemize out the different components of your home, and those different components have different depreciation values, meaning
Okay.
over the course of years. So you're going to have to, we basically hire specialists to come in and do this, right? So that's one way we
Mm-hmm.
tap into depreciation, right? Again, we don't spend the money to
Mm-hmm.
get it. We just do it because we have this property in place, right? So that's like
Right.
one way to do it. So what happens is when you do that, if you don't want to do that, and let's just say you go, nope, I'll just go with the blanket price and depreciate it, which is everyone can do that, no problems. If it creates a loss on your books, what happens is the losses get limited in terms of how it offsets your other sources of income.
Okay.
All right. So, for example, you as a W 2 earner, we would call that active income. As
Mm-hmm.
business owners, we work behind here, like in the office and stuff, we call that active income. So, this is important,
Right.
right? We're actually having to physically go, get up, go to work, do the damn job, get the check,
Yeah.
right? Like that's active. When you become a real estate investor, right, or you play in the stock market, let's just say, here and
Mm-hmm.
there, you now what we call passive income. So it's
Okay.
passive, right? Because you're not really having to work for it. It's just coming to you. And
Mm-hmm.
so because of the nature of being passive, Uncle Sam came in and was like, this is how it's going to work. All active losses. So again, if I'm an active business owner and I have losses on the books, it can offset all of my other sources of income.
Okay.
All right. I think you know where I'm going with this. So
Yeah.
if you have passive losses, Uncle Sam's going to say, but there's a stop sign. And so you're
Got
going to
it.
be limited to the amount that you can do, right? So it's limited with the amount that it can reduce your overall other income, your active income, thereby
Mm-hmm.
reducing your taxes.
I
So
see.
what we have to do is we have to strategically think about, and this is where I, as a tax planner, come into play, is that we go behind the scenes and we look through the complexity of the tax law for you, and we find loopholes that converts it from being passive into active. And there's a
Okay.
whole bunch of rules that we have to follow, right? You have to really follow it and document the hell out of it, which is why I
Mm-hmm.
created a program called Rapid Tax Savings Formula for business owners, where we talk about the 5 pillars of profitability. And one of the pillars is documentation. How do
Mm-hmm.
we document to support these losses that can exceed the stopgap, right? That stop right there.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's where you right now, as a passive investor, we need to think about ways to turn you into an active investor. So
Got
now
it.
all of a
Yep.
sudden you go, okay, well, how much time do you have on your hands? So
Mm-hmm.
we got to put in work because it's got to be like a business, right? We get up, we go put in the hours, right? And that helps to convert it. There's a whole bunch of rules we have to follow,
Yep.
but I digress. So you're on the right path. But if
Mm-hmm.
we're going to save tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes, which can be done, and you know this from the industry you work in, right? If we
Yep.
do this, then we can begin to convert what's normally passive and then limited, and then convert it into active, which now becomes unlimited.
Got it.
That
Okay. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So I think for you, what I would recommend is because tax season's upon us, right? So you're going
Yep.
to file some tax returns. And I saw, we all file. Do you file your own taxes?
I have in the past. Yes.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So like what I would do for people out there who are watching the show and you want to file your own taxes and you have rental property, what you want to consider are all of these deductions that you're allowed to have as a landlord. So, what are you
Mm-hmm.
allowed to deduct? Well, I mentioned it earlier. Whatever is ordinary and necessary to make that rental income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we have to ask ourselves, what is typical of a landlord to spend money on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's play a game. Would you want to play a game with me?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So, When you think of the word landlord or realtor, right? Landlord that owns property, what do you think are some common expenses that they incur throughout the year?
Um, Landscaping, repairs, um, let's see, you know, advertising if they have to change out tenants,
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yes, and I'm gonna go and maybe some signage so you can put out the
Yep.
for rent sign, maybe some commissions because maybe you don't want to go find the people to rent from you,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go hire people to do that for you. So you get where I'm going, right? So for you out there
Yes.
who are my landlord owners out there, think about, what are these expenses? A through Z. You don't know? Go get my book, The ABCs of Deductions, an Entrepreneur's Guide to Tax Write-Offs. Find it on Amazon. It's 13 bucks. So the point is that it's these types of things, right, that we can then offset against the rental income. But then here's, like I said earlier, there's that catch. Up to a certain limit, you're going to be allowed to take the losses, and then you will have no access to the losses anymore. And then, but all is not lost, right? All is not lost. Let's not lose hope now. So here's what happens. If you're limited to the losses, Uncle Sam says that you can carry those losses forward
Okay.
into other years where maybe you don't have a lot of expenses. It's a good year, people are renting from you all year long, you're not really paying out commissions and things of that nature, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have income, naturally, profits, but because of the losses from prior years, you can use that to offset that future income.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it may not feel like immediate tax savings in year number one,
Mm-hmm.
but always remember that tax savings can happen in year 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down the road.
Yeah. And that will definitely help in the long run. Yeah.
Definitely so. So now that I had you on here, do you have any more questions for me?
Um, I don't think so. This was
Did I
awesome.
answer your
I
question?
appreciate it. Yeah.
Cool beans. All right. So listen out there, if you yourself are a landlord and you're going, what? How does Jonathan help me to get past this hump, this limitation that I'm going to have to face? Let's connect. Let's get naked at nakedtaxtalk.com. You can also find me on jonathanbangle.com. And you can tune in and make sure to subscribe, hit the alert button so you get these pre-recordings and also the live shows when I do them live. Until then, I'm Jonathan Bangle. And remember, it's with mucho, mucho, mucho dinero.